Beware, the game contains scenes of extreme violence, gore, sexual violence, and drug usage. If you are sensitive to such subjects, it is advised not to play the game, and to be careful when watching this video. Also, spoilers for those who have not played the game and wish to do so. The gods of fear and hunger are many, most of them belonging to a group called the New Gods. However, the true and powerful ones are simply referred to as the Old Gods, beings that represent the purest versions of certain ideas and feelings that humans hold. One of them being the concept that many of us fear. Grogoroth, the god of destruction and of human sacrifice. The antithesis and, funnily enough, a husband of the goddess of love and fertility Sylvian. As one exists, so must the other. As Grogoroth plants the seeds of destruction, Sylvian waters them and produces the flowers of creation. A yin and yang situation present within the world of fear and hunger. A cycle representing how they coexist with one another. Their purposes as gods, and how it eventually creates new life that will flourish. They even sire a son, Venushka, the god of nature, to even further this point. An unimaginably old and powerful god, Grogoroth, like all old gods, originates from the green hue that resides within the void, a seemingly ancient and decrepit place, devoid of any life familiar to humankind. His symbol is two intersecting rings that can be inferred as an eclipse and most commonly seen in the tail part of the coin flips found within the world. He is often depicted as a giant monster with bulky claws, thin wings akin to those of bats, bird-like heads adorned across his chest, and horns protruding from his head. In texts found across fear and hunger, he usually has a human's body strapped to his pelvic region to relieve the feeling of fear when interacting with humans. Though this specific depiction is not present in the final encounter you have with him once you reach the end of the gauntlet, found within the God of the Depths corpse. Instead, you only see his upper torso depicted, with multiple eyeballs riddled across his body, and a wide, disturbing grin at the center of his chest. Chaos, anarchy, sacrifice, and war. These are all things tied to Grogoroth and what he wishes for most in the human world. Though he desires for blood to be spilled in his name, he is not technically a wicked or nefarious god, for he does not do these things out of contempt or hatred, but simply because that is his purpose and reason for existence. It is the natural order and one he must enforce. Such is the case with many of the primordial gods within fear and hunger. They simply follow their purpose, for they are the true forms of these concepts within humans, and they cannot, nor will not, deviate from them. With Grogoroth's cycle of chaos and destruction, the world will change and grow as a result. The following is an excerpt from the studies of Grogoroth that can be found within the world of fear and hunger. To give room for new generations, for new trees to grow and usher, a prior forest needs to be burnt down. Such is the rule of creation. Creation and destruction. One does not exist without the other. This destruction is called Gro-goroth, the destroyer of men. A man fears destruction, because a man gets accustomed to peace and quiet. The man grows fat and afraid of change. But change is inevitable, just as is Gro-goroth. But there is no need for fear, as the destruction is of pure kind. It does not target one man specifically. It simply exists. Grogoroth grants his followers and those that encompass his teachings a terrible power known as blood magic. Through this power, humans can wield the destruction Grogoroth wishes to engulf across the lands. Though, for this gift to be bestowed upon them, they pay a terrible price, where their physical bodies deteriorate and become fragile, as seen with the cases of the Black Witch and the Yellow Mages. The Yellow Mages are practitioners of magic that hail from the eastern sanctuaries. Founded by the new god Nashra, they do not worship or revere Grogoroth in the typical sense. They simply use his power to further their own personal agendas and goals. In fact, this philosophy is instilled upon them by their leaders, that everything you do as a Yellow Mage must be in pursuit of personal gain. Their connection to Grogoroth is not based on religion, like some of the other gods' devotees, but rather on greed and ambition. Though perhaps Grogoroth may not care, as long as destruction and chaos is done in his name. The Black Witch has also immersed herself with the teachings of the dark arts and has become corrupted due to it. She may differ from the Yellow Mages though, as she is referred to as a slave to Grogoroth by the new gods, and may actually worship him unlike the Yellow Mages, since she states that she does not fear death and merely considers it a stepping stone in her journey, as a true Grogoroth worshipper would likely believe. Another group that follows Grogoroth, more specifically the flesh and sacrifice portion of his teachings, is the Wolf Masks cult. These crazed individuals partake in a ritual called the celebration of flesh, and can be found eating away at each other's flesh, and even sometimes their own. If the player chooses to do so, taking part in this ritual garners them affinity with Grogoroth, though one must be careful, as the allure can be too much. The participants are induced to a trance-like state, though they seem content with their situation, and some are even aroused by the ritual. Unlike the other followers of Grogoroth, it does not seem that the Wolf Mask cult are practitioners of magic, and only indulge themselves by consuming the flesh of one another. In one of the endings of Fear and Hunger, ending B, the player is able to meet Grogoroth, or rather, the traces that are left behind after reaching level 9 of the aforementioned gauntlet, but only if the girl is not present within the party. It is only after surviving the initial encounter with him that the traces of Grogoroth reveals the old gods have long since left the world and have abandoned humanity due to their disdain with the selfishness and ambitions of men. As humans are unable to perceive and understand the purity of the old gods, as each individual human has a different notion of the concepts the old gods represent. It is unknown where the old gods decided to go, whether they returned deeper into the green hue, or departed for a new realm entirely in search of beings who can understand their existence. It is all entirely up to speculation. However, even with their influence fading from the world, the traces left behind are incredibly powerful and are still the strongest beings in the world of Fear and Hunger. These traces do not even hold a fraction of the strength the old gods had, yet could easily annihilate the player and even the new gods, as seen with Nashra, as if he is present within the player's party. He will be immediately disposed of, even before the battle commences. After speaking with the traces of Grogoroth, he asks if you would like to see glimpses of the true form the old god represented. Saying yes or no does not matter. The outcome is the same, and you will be driven insane at mere glimpses of the visage you see. Your body shuts down, and you do not survive. As is the case with most of the endings of Fear and Hunger, and even if you do escape, you will never be the same person you were before stepping into those horrible and grotesque dungeons. Though some say that Grogoroth still mingles in the mortal realm, hidden beneath the flesh of human beings, and the macabre display of hanging bodies. Who truly knows, though?